Okay, this is a very exciting text that I'm going to share with you. I'm going to give you a little bit of background. As you know, that I was in a classic yeshiva for many years. 10 years I was in a really I was actually 19 years. But really, 10 of those years I was in a classic, what we call it, Litvish, Mishnagdish yeshiva. Like, we'll call it hardcore, okay? They didn't study much mysticism, okay? Because it was basically Talmud, morning, afternoon, and evening. Necessary, and I appreciate it, and it was good for me, okay? I had an awakening after 8 years of being in that yeshiva. Awakening from my dad's friend, and because he was puzzled how we went to a rabbi, and he wanted to learn Kabbalah from a rabbi. And all of a sudden that woke up me, and wow, the whole thing that got me into the yeshiva in the first place was I wanted to learn Kabbalah. And all of a sudden, after 8 years of studying Talmud, which was awesome for me, and I still do, and it's very important, always necessary, but I woke up, I want to learn this too, and they won't let you learn it in yeshiva. So I had to sneak out at night, right, and go to a place outside of the yeshiva, not too far away in the old city, a yeshiva called Kol Yehuda, which basically the students of Rabbi Ashlag were there, and they would study, and there would be a class every night. And I started to learn about the wisdom of Rabbi Yehuda Leib Ashlag, and what he was saying, and everything like that, and I went and I got this book here. This book, look at this book. You can just look how old it is. It's kind of like, it was been redone, but now, somebody rebound it. But when I got this book, I wanted to put on Shabbos clothes, and I was dancing all the way home because I was just so feeling that this book really connected me, and how can he not connect people to their life's purpose and what we're supposed to be doing here. And interestingly enough, I'll just give you the side story from this very place where I went to, Kol Yehuda, upstairs, little place, rabbis learning. There was an English class for me. Before that, previously, many years before, that was where Philip Berg went, the one who started the Kabbalah Center. He was there, sucked out of the wisdom from Yehuda Leib Ashlag, called the Sulam, also known as the Sulam. And, of course, then he went ahead and did what he did in the world, okay, to bring it out in the way that he did. When you look for good things, there's even good to be said of that, because it did awaken people to Judaism, mystical aspects of Judaism, and it does. And I know people who now are totally in the fold. In other words, they observe the commandments, and they did it through that gate. As much as that gate is not considered a kosher gate by most standards, people did come religious through it. Jews did come back. So you have to give a little bit of credit where credit is due, okay? Normally we don't study those books. But then I found many years later, because I always wanted to translate this work, that there's actually a translation of two pieces that he does in here called In the Shadow of the Ladder. Now this is a book that needs to be studied. It's not necessarily just like, well, of course you could probably just eat it up and for breakfast and read it, but it's something that needs to be studied. So here's a piece that was just completely mind-blowing to me and very awakening as to the study of Kabbalah and why is the study of Kabbalah so important, especially for our generation. Okay? And then in our small little circle, how it has tremendous ramifications. Okay? So I think you guys have it, except I don't have it. Okay, I know what page it's on. So it's on page 88 here. And it starts with paragraph, because you'll see it's done in paragraphs. This book basically is a series of introductions. It's called Sefer HaHakdamot, which means the book of introductions. In other words, he wrote introductions to many Kabbalistic works, the Zohar, Talmud Eser Sfirot, and many works, and he made introductions. And in introductions themselves are many, many deep concepts in Judaism, okay, and in mysticism, okay? So here if we go, on page 88, it says that in the paragraph where that begins with 65, or you might just have a 5 there, because the photocopies didn't come out so good. And it begins with, now you must know. We all there? Mm-hmm. Now you must know that everything has an inner aspect and an outer aspect. Okay? B'chol davar yesh pnimiut v'chitzoniut. There's an inner and an outer aspect of it. Now, if you think about that for a minute, just sit back. Is that true? Does everything have an inner and an outer? I look at physical things, and I can basically you can observe everything that it basically does have an inner and an outer, okay? And in spiritual things as well, okay? Such as, let's say, us, we have an external part of our body, and then you have all these organs going on inside that are chum-churring and chugga-chugging, and we don't even have a concept of what's going on with our heart pumping and the lungs going and the blood flowing, and it's all going, but there's an inner world going on and there's an outer world, right? There's an inner aspect and an outer aspect. Ubichlalu ha'olam, and in general in the world, I might have to shut it off of this one, but it's too bad. In the world as a whole, Israel, the seed of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, is considered to be the innermost aspect. The 70 nations are considered to be the outer aspect of the world. Okay? This could be puzzling, especially for people in California, who would now, if I would say this, they would go, "You're a racist." Okay? So, because what does this mean? What does this mean? That Israel is the innermost part, and the 70 nations are the outer aspect. Okay? It doesn't mean one is more important than the other, in a certain sense. Okay? It kind of is in a certain way, but in a general direction, I'm going to explain to you something very important from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. Okay? He explains in one of his Torahs, and he learns it from Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses. The father-in-law of Moses comes and he joins Moses in the camp, and Moses sits him down and he tells him every single thing that happened when they're going out of the Egypt, the Red Sea splitting, the war of Amalek, and Yisro gets goosebumps and he says, "Oh, now I know that God is above all gods." He says, "Now I really know. Now I got it. How powerful God is." He always knew God, but now he gets a real, and he praises God. And from here, Rabbi Nachman says, it is a goal. It is a goal, believe it or not, for the Jewish people to influence the 70 nations to praise God. And there's nothing higher than when the nations praise God. In other words, the ultimate goal is that the entire world should come to realize that there's God. The entire world should come to the realization that the only thing to do all day long is just thank God and praise God and just recognize Him and have a connection. And that's what it means by being a light unto the nations. Now, it's kind of an astounding idea to what I just told you, because usually in general we say that Jews don't proselytize, and we're not supposed to. We don't in general proselytize. We don't say that everybody has to be Jewish. But we do say that everybody has to believe in God. We do say everybody has to have emunah. We do say everybody has to have faith. And the ultimate goal is that all nations should come, and we should be there as a light unto the nations. And that is the reason why, according to the Gemara and Sanhedrin, we were sent out into the world, was to enlighten the entire world and bring the world closer to God. So it's a great thing. As a matter of fact, that was the reason why Moses asked God to bring the Eruv Rav, which is this mixed multitude, these non-Jewish people who were in Egypt, who wanted to tag along, right? Basically, they instituted all of the problems in the desert, this mixed multitude, and they are still among us today, okay? I don't want to, and they're everywhere, and the influence is usually not so religious, okay? Right? In any case, Moses went to God and says, these people, they want to come with us. They want to leave Egypt with us. And God goes, "I don't think that's a good idea." Really? He said, "No, don't do that." Right? But Moses says, "But they'll come, they'll see you, they'll praise you. Isn't that the whole goal?" Still don't think it's a good idea. So Moses didn't listen to God, and Moses brought him out. How do you like that? Okay? That's why it says, actually, in Mount Sinai, when they sinned at the golden calf, that God says, the people that your people, have committed a grave sin. He said, your people. Not my people, not the people of Israel. Your people, meaning those guys who you brought out with you, they caused some problems. So the idea really here is to understand it now in terms of, we want to get the whole body activated, but we have to understand there's an inner body, there's an inner, and there's an outer. Okay? As much as it might be like a little bit jittery to fathom it, we do have to consider ourselves as being the innermost aspect of the world. And the 70 nations are the outer aspect of the world. So that's one division. Everything has an inner and an outer. Israel is the inner, and the outer is the 70 nations. Within Israel itself, there is an inner aspect, which consists of those people who are seriously committed to their spiritual work of serving God. And there is an outer aspect consisting of those who are not involved in spirituality. Just like we see in our nation. We have religious and you have non-religious. Okay? Inner, outer, within Israel itself. Okay? So if I want to get this on a chart, let's hope this is going to help us out here. Is that right? So if you go like this in the world in general, you'll have an inner and an outer. The inner is Israel. The outer is the 70 nations. And in Israel, you'll have an inner and an outer. Okay? And the inner is those who are involved in serving God or spirituality. And those who are not. Okay? Outside. I don't know about atheist. Okay? They're just called we'd call them a chiloni, even though people say, don't say that. You know? Chiloni literally translates, you'll translate literally as secular.
Yeah,
Secular. Whole comes from the root of whole. I think there's extra copy back there on the chair. Whole, which means, like, I hate to translate whole as what normally is translated as profane. It's not profane, it's just not holy. Shabbos is kadosh, is holy. The days of the week are called not holy, chol. Okay? Lahavdil bein Shabbos l'chol. Okay? So they're not so motivated. Okay? Let's just say that. Okay? So that's an inner and outer within Israel itself. Likewise, among the nations of the world, there is an inner aspect which consists of the saints of the world. Okay, we call them Chasidei Ulmot HaOlam. The saints of the world, and an outer aspect which consists of those who are destructive and coarse. Okay? So here, within this, also, right, let's do colored lines. We should do colored lines. So since I have colors, I'll do it. This is like purple. Okay. And then within the nations, we have also an inner, which are called the righteous Gentiles. Then you'll have what we would call them coarse. Okay? Coarse and destructive. Okay? We're getting a picture here? Circles inside of circles. Like an onion. Okay?
What's the center say? The very center?
The center is Israel, or those who are serving God and into spirituality. Okay? Now, we're going to go further. Okay? Even among those of Israel who serve God, there is an inner aspect and an outer aspect. Okay? In other words, we find in the world there are different types of people who are religious. Okay? The inner aspect is those people who are privileged to understand the soul of the innermost aspects of the Torah and its secrets. And the outer part consists of those people who only deal with the practical, they only deal with the practical aspects of the Torah. Okay? In other words, there are people who have an inclination. Let's say, here he says they're zoche. They're privileged to understand the soul of the innermost aspects of the Torah and its secrets. Okay? They have let's look at it as they have an inclination to understand. No one can really fully grasp, okay, the king, okay? But you have to try, okay? You have to be a seeker. So the idea here is there are those who are involved with the innermost aspects of the Torah and its secrets, and the outer parts considers only deal with practical aspects of the Torah. They don't touch anything mystical. I don't know if you've ever met some people like that, but they only want what's practical, only halacha. As a matter of fact, it's really big. In my days, it's a little bit less now, but it still is there. Ingrained in a lot of people. If you mentioned, I had to learn this book, I'm telling you, in yeshiva. I was so thirsty, you understand? No, that is easy. I was in the Beit Midrash and I had my big Talmud here and this was behind it. But of course you have nosy people who want to walk behind and see what you're learning. So I have to and do like this, okay? So, and they were, what you looking at? And I got caught sometimes because I started to get a little brazen. I'm like, I need to learn this, man. I'm thirsty. I got it. My soul is just crying for this, okay? So the idea here is there's some people who says, no, it's not for me. As a matter of fact, as soon as you start talking about 10 Sfirot, I've seen it. All of a sudden their eyes get cloudy and they go into this kind of catatonic state where they're just like blank out. They put a screen, there's a wall there. And they wait till you finish and then they come back to their senses. Okay? I've seen it.
People did that when I talk to them most of the
time. Okay, fine. Sorry about that. Okay, some people do that. So, because they don't want to talk about it. They don't know anything. I don't know anything. I don't want to. Don't talk to me. I don't want to. Okay, fine. So wait a minute, let's get that another new line here. Okay, fine. So in other words, within those people who are spiritual here, we have those who are in the innermost study. Okay? Right? The innermost aspect of the Torah. I'll just write in. And then there is what we call Torah's Nigle, which is the revealed parts of the Torah. Okay? Revealed. Okay? Oh, Nigle. In Hebrew is Nun Gimel Lamed Hey. Okay? Okay, page 89, the top. All this can also be considered likewise in one individual person. So here we have a setup of the world. He sets up the world. What do you think about what I'm saying so far? Does it make sense at all? Inner, outer, inner, outer?
Sure.
All this can also be considered likewise in one individual person. Why? How? The individual has within him or her the innermost aspect, which is called the aspect of Israel within the person. This is the point of divine light within his or her heart. He or she also has an outer aspect, which corresponds to the 70 nations of the world and relates to the will to receive. This is how he goes. Interesting, his translation here. Because I think in the Hebrew here, let me just look at it here. Okay, he wants to say it's called the four worlds. Hu haguf atzmo. He says it's the body. The internal nations of the world have the capacity for transformation. They can cleave to the innermost divine part of the soul, person's soul, and they can become the righteous converts who join with the community of Israel. In other words, within a person, of course, he has within his heart the deepest connection to God that is always there. Because he is, in a certain sense, carved from the essence of God, his very soul. And so it is within him. We are taught the entire Torah when we're in the stomach of our mothers. And we compare it to, and of course when we're born, what happens? The angel slaps us on the face and we forget it. So they go, what's the point of teaching the entire Torah just to slap him on the face and make him forget his Torah, right? What good does that do, right? So the idea really is, of course, as they say, that when the angel is teaching you the entire Torah. It's like engraving in the stone with a hammer and chisel. And then when you're born and he slaps you and you forget it, it's like covering it over with dust. The bottom line is the message is there. You just have to shake off the dust. But it's there. It's there. Now the body is kind of like in our model here, is compared to the 70 nations. Now, the 70 nations, the righteous of those 70 nations have the capacity, like he says here, to transform. In other words, they can cave, I don't use that word, they can't allow themselves to be influenced by the soul's direction and follow what the soul does. In other words, the soul says, I really want to do a mitzvah. And the body goes, oh, just let me sleep, right? But if the soul can influence the body, and the body will say, okay, let's do it. And let's say if he does it with alacrity and excitement and zest, right? So it's transformed, okay? So within a very person, when he overcomes the bodily desires, so what's happening here is, it's like in his own aspect, his 70 nations are becoming attached to Israel, his inner point in his heart, and becoming elevated, okay? In a micro. This is a huge rule in Kabbalistic doctrine, is the micro-macro. As a matter of fact, that's the pervasive theme of this entire piece, is micro-macro. What we do in our small little 6 feet by 6 feet space has tremendous ramifications. We're not shown it, but it has, okay? As we're taught. And this is how our forefathers lived. It says that Avram Avinu would not lift a finger unless God told him to, unless it was a mitzvah. Okay? Imagine having such a level of consciousness like that. Like you're not going to move unless you know it's a mitzvah. It's a lot of training, but people do this. Rabbis say that. Anytime anything comes to you, ask, is it a mitzvah? Is it not a mitzvah? What kind of mitzvah? So they go through a mental focus in order to that they are always involved in a mitzvah. Okay? Paragraph 66. A person may reinforce and respect his or her innermost aspect, which is the aspect of Israel within the person, over his or her external aspect, which is the aspect of the nations of the world within the person, meaning the body. Right? In other words, are you going to give more importance to your soul, or are you going to give more importance to the body? Okay? So if a person will reinforce his innermost aspect, which is the soul within him, which is called the Israel within the person, so he or she then strives to put most of his or her energy and labor into increasing and enhancing his or her innermost aspect for the soul's sake. To those aspects of himself or herself which correspond to the internal nations of the world within that person, he or she gives only the minimum required, not to ignore the body or ignore the needs of the body, but not to overindulge in the body, in the body's fancies. That is to say, that the person only gives the minimum to his or her wills to receive for oneself. This is an interesting dynamic that I've mentioned several times in many of the classes, that we talked about what did God create when he made the universe, when he made creation. What did he create that was not part of himself? Right? So we answer, because if he's everything, and contains everything, and everything is contained in him, what did he make that's, so to speak, outside of, not part of himself? And that's only one thing. That the entire universe and the cosmos are made of, which is called will to receive. Everything is made up of this stuff that maybe the physicists call atoms or subatomic particles, but we call it in terms of the Kabbalistic view, ratzon lekabel, will to receive. So we have built in this natural will to receive. You can't shake it. It's natural. You can't. We're all inclined to go for pleasurable activities, and we all run away from painful activities. Okay? Some people are addicted to punishment. Okay, but maybe that's their pleasure. okay? So, but in any case, okay, we want to make sure this will to receive for oneself, I guess you could call that in a certain sense selfish, in a certain sense, okay? We want to try to minimize that, okay? Because the idea really here is we want to be like God. We're here to be like God. The more God-like we are, the more connected to God we are. When we are more God-like, so then we're in resonance with that vibration, which is more God-like. And God is only involved in giving. He doesn't receive. It's not part of his programming at all. Right? He's not involved. It's not part of him. He doesn't need to receive. So let me just finish this thought. When we are engaged in giving, so then we are in that like form of God. Yes?
The will to receive is simple. When we're aware, focusing on what God's giving us every second, everything, that's what you want to receive.
Good. Then what's the attitude in receiving that? It's great what you're saying.
Gratefulness.
Yes. The first idea is gratefulness and gratitude. Thank you. And I only want to receive this in order that you, God, gets all the credit. In other words, only that your manifestation is here and now for all of humanity. That your recognition comes out. For the sake of your name, which means that your expression is expressed here and now. In other words, I don't want to do it I'm only doing it only for the sake of your expression, God. Of the expression of your infiniteness in this realm. Okay?
But you can't do it for any reason. If you're awareness
it needs consciousness. I'm just saying that here right now it's brought to the forefront because most people, are doing it for a mitzvah, but when we're understanding the depth of it, that it has to do with we're involved in only receiving only on the condition that we're giving through our receiving, that is the level that we need to be more consciously. Some people are more conscious than others. Some people need to develop it more than others. Okay? Anyways, so to those, now I forgot where I was. Okay? I think I'm in the middle of 66. To those aspects of himself or herself which correspond to the internal nations of the world within that person, he or she gives only the minimum required. That is to say that the person only gives the minimum to his or her wills to receive for oneself, according to what is written in the Ethics of the Fathers. Make your Torah your main occupation and your work secondary to it. It's a headspace. Learning Torah is my main occupation. I only learn for 1 hour a day and I'm tending to my bodily needs the rest of the time. Doesn't matter. What do you do? When people ask you, what do? You don't say, I'm an accountant. You say, I serve God. What parnasa am I actively involved with? Okay, I'm a painter. I'm an accountant, whatever. Okay? But really, all of us should make the Torah your main occupation, okay? The person's deeds affect both the inner aspect and the external aspect of the world as a whole. This is a big, huge thing, okay? Again, this is the micro-macro that a person has to be familiar with and accustom himself to. You are a small universe. The entire universe, believe it or not, as wild as it sounds, is contained within you. Okay, and therefore you have absolutely unbelievable, powerful effect on the entire cosmos. Okay? Rather, the Baal Shem Tov of blessed memory would say in the Pirkei Avos, there's a Pirkei Avos which says, Da ma lamala mimcha. Know what is above you, and you won't come to sin. But really, the idea here is how he learns it. Da ma lamala, what is above you? Mimcha, is from you. It's an unbelievable statement, how he learns it. What is above is from you. What are you talking about, Rabbi? That means once we got the Torah, once we were created, right? Once we got the Torah, the entire universe, as to say, so to speak, is in our hands. Okay? It's scary, because you're like giving a Maserati to a caveman who doesn't know what to do with it. Okay? Thank God it's user-friendly. Okay? The Torah is user-friendly. He or she causes the spiritual level of Israel to go up, and the nations of the world, which comprise the external aspects of humanity, then recognize the value of Israel. Okay, so we're going on the positive sense first. And he's talking about how much our actions have a reverberatory effect, if I'm saying it correctly, on the entire cosmos. When we value our soul over our body, that's just to put it simple, okay? What happens in the entire world? That has an effect in the entire world. That means in the entire world, what happens? That means the nations of the world value Israel. Okay? That means if we, in our headspace, value our soul over our body, and our body is in line with that, is attuned with that, is on board with that, that has an effect in the entire world, that all of a sudden, the entire nations would go, Israel has value. Okay? A hard statement for us to grasp. Yeah, go on.
We've had tzaddikim for a very long time, and we are no closer to the world recognizing morality, which uplifts the world. So are we saying that every Jew has to reach that level for it to penetrate the rest of the world? Or can we say that, because if we're going to wait for every Jew to have that,
You don't wait, you do it yourself.
The world's not going to get better.
Good. So it's a great question that you're asking. And what I'm saying is not every Jew has to reach that, but there's an attitude. It's an attitude. But on our square inch, in our area, if we have that, what I call the critical mass effect, which is if enough people have this kind of attitude, so that will have an effect.
What percentage?
I don't know. But it's a critical mass. There is a certain number once the people grasp it, but you have to start off with you. First, you start off with you, and you start off with your self-value, your inner self-value, that you are in the image and likeness of God, that you are tselem Elokami Ma'al, you are an aspect of God, and the body has to go ahead and also agree to it. So then that will have a reverberatory. Let's see the opposite, and then I think we'll answer your question more as we go on. Okay. But if, God forbid, okay, and this is going to explain a lot because of the tzaddikim that you mentioned, but if, God forbid, the opposite occurs, that an individual of Israel reinforces and values his or her outer aspects, okay, which is the aspect of the nations of the world within him or her, over and above his or her inner aspect of Israel, then, according to the prophecy of Deuteronomy, the stranger that is within you, which refers to the external aspects of the person, will prevail over you higher and higher. And you, as you are in yourself, in your innermost aspect, in your most aspect of Israel within you, will go down further and further. This is part of the curses that we have in Deuteronomy in a couple of parshas. In other words, if you value your body and your body's needs and your will to receive for yourself alone, your selfish, egotistical, self-centered aspect, and you're to your soul, basically, you poo-poo your soul and what your soul needs, okay? So then that has a tremendous effect in the world, okay? Then the person causes his or her deeds by his or her deeds, that the externality of the world, which is the nations of the world, ascends higher and higher and has power over Israel and humiliates it to the dust. And that they are the innermost aspect of the world, go down, down, further and further, God forbid. In other words, the nations of the world say, what do we need Israel for? Okay? We don't need Israel. So in other words, if this very Jew would give importance to his neshama, has an effect. If he doesn't give importance to neshama, it has an effect. Okay? You have a question. Okay. Yes?
Ishmael and Esau. When we don't do what we need to do, what you just said, the ones that get strong is Ishmael and Esau, the Muslims and the Goyim.
Right. Which is...
They get stronger.
Now, I'm going to cut to the chase. Okay? We can never give answers why the Holocaust happened. We're too close to it. All of the Orthodox views have different opinions. Even in the Orthodox realm are different opinions. Some people say it was because of Israel. Some people say not enough Israel. Right? He has his opinion because he was in Poland. He saw what was going on. I think he left. He said, you guys, Poland, it's on fire. Get out. And he screamed at people. He got out and he became the Rav of Kiryat Moshe in Jerusalem. Okay? And his idea was, and you might, have to just, put it on the shelf, but I'm just going to tell you, I'm not allowed to say it, but he's saying it. He says it. And he brings it in this article. It's because they did not, in Europe, value the innermost part of the soul. And because of that, it has this reverberatory effect, that the nations of the world look at the Jews and go, what value are they?
Money.
And what happens is it has a total reverberatory effect that the destructive force, if you don't give value to this, it affects the Chilonim, the non-religious, look at the religious going, no value. And then here, the coarse and destructive forces, they overpower the righteous Gentiles, and therefore they say Israel has no value. And this is why he says the Holocaust happened. They weren't studying the innermost parts of the Torah. Okay? They were only in the external aspects. And therefore, since they were in the external aspects, they weren't juicing their neshama. They weren't giving... Now, I can't say this, but he says it. Okay? They weren't feeding their neshama. Now, I've done this in classes. I'm going to do this with you now. I haven't done this in years. And you're going to have to, put on your seatbelts for this a little bit. Okay? I used to do this with the teens at NCSY. I said, if you could unzip your body, just hear what your soul is saying inside. You can just take this and you just unzip. You know what your soul will be saying? And I would do this, and I'll go, help me, please, I'm starving. Please, give me some food, give me some water. Please, help me. And if you zip it up. Okay? I did it more dramatic and more longer, but just to get an idea that the soul is in the body and it's sitting as a guest in the corner, and maybe you'll throw it a scrap of bread. Maybe you'll listen to a rabbi give a little Devar Torah here once in a while. Maybe. Maybe you'll say a tefillin. Maybe you'll say, maybe you'll do a mitzvah. Maybe you'll feed it. Otherwise, he sits in the corner starving. But meanwhile, the body is sitting, living on in the penthouse suite, drinking martinis. Okay? Okay. Do not be surprised by the fact that an individual person, through his or her deeds, can cause an elevation or degradation of the whole world. Don't be surprised. I'm on paragraph 67 on page 90. There is an unalterable law that the macrocosm, the totality of the microcosm, the totality, and the microcosm, the individual, are as like to each other as 2 drops of water. The same procedures that occur with respect to the macrocosm occur with regard to the individual, and vice versa. You are the world, and the world is within you. Furthermore, it is the individual components themselves which make up the macrocosm, and thus the macrocosm is only revealed through the manifestation of its individual components according to their measure and their quality. So certainly the act of a single person, according to his or her capacity, may lower or elevate humanity as a whole. And there's many statements in the Chazal, in the Talmud like this, that you have to look at as if the entire world is 50-50, poised. 50, on the scales, on the balance scales. Like this is for negativity and this is for positivity. Rabbi Shimon, I think. It comes from the Talmud, okay? So he says a person has to look at it, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. He says you have to look at it as you do one positive deed, you have to look at it as if the world is poised on the balance scale exactly like this. One bad deed can cause the whole place to fall. One good deed can build the entire world. Okay? This is how we can understand what is stated in the Zohar, that through the study of the Zohar and the practice of the true wisdom, we can bring about an end to our state of exile and complete redemption, period. Now, this is why he always pushes this, okay? This, what did I say? Rab Shimon Bar Yochai holds up his book, the Zohar, and he says, through the study of this book, the children of Israel go out of exile. And what is in the Zohar? All of the esoteric wisdom about the soul. Okay? All of the unbelievable rules and laws that are in the deepest parts of the 5 books of Moses, but in a much, much deeper way. Because we have to peel off the mask of matter. You have to understand there's deeper things going on, and you have to start to educate and start to train yourself to see things deeper. We could ask what studying the Zohar could have to do with redeeming Israel from the nations. So he's going to answer, how could the study of this book, that's a high claim. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai says, that's a high claim. This book is the ticket out. What a book, huh? Who wouldn't take such a book, huh? Right? From what we have already seen, it is easy to understand that the Torah, like the world itself, has an inner and an outer aspect. We said this. The Torah has an inner and an outer. You have the body of laws, which we have to adhere to. The oral, the revealed Torah, you have to study. We have to know. But then there's the inner aspect also. Likewise, the one who occupies himself or herself with Torah has these 2 levels. So to the degree that a person, when practicing Torah, strengthens and focuses on the innermost aspects of Torah and its secrets, he or she gives strength to this measure to the innermost aspect of the world, which is Israel. That's how the study of mysticism and Kabbalah has such a tremendous effect. Because what does it mean when you're doing that? And you don't even have to do it all day. All you have to do is it's attitude. This is the real juice. Okay? This is important. But this is the real juice. Okay? This is the real food for the soul. Okay? Not that I understand it. I don't understand it, Rabbi. I study once a week, I study, just give me the revealed parts is okay. It's okay to say, listen, I can only handle the revealed parts. But when it comes to the esoteric, don't it. Ditz it. What do you call it? People step on it. They don't value it. The attitude, it has to be valued. Not that you have to learn it all day. Okay? So what does he say here? It's measure for measure. Then, when he does this, Israel begins to fulfill its true function with respect to the nations, who then value Israel's role amongst them. So then we become who? The spiritual leaders that we're supposed to be. The light unto the nations that we're supposed to be. Then shall the words of the prophet be fulfilled, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place. In other words, the peoples of the world are going to buy you a plane ticket and settle you in Nahariya, okay? Or Netanya, or Jerusalem, or whatever, man. You'll have Bill Gates' credit card. Just swipe it, tickets, whatever you need, right? That's the ultimate, that's the real solution, okay? In other words, if we value ourselves and our spiritual aspect, then the world follows suit. Thus says the Lord God, behold, I will lift up my hand to the nations and set up my standard to the peoples, and they shall bring your sons in their arms, and your daughters shall be carried on their shoulders, and kings shall be your foster fathers, and their queens your nursing mothers. In other words, Israel, that is to say, the will to receive in order to serve God and each other, will triumph over the will to receive from oneself alone, which will then act as support and handmaiden to the will to receive in order to give. In other words, we'll be involved in giving and understanding the nature of our soul, the nature of our godlike soul, which is that will to give. But God forbid the opposite could happen. A person of Israel might devalue the most inner part of the Torah with its secrets, which deal with the ways of our souls and their levels, devaluing also the intellectual considerations and reasons of the Torah, emphasizing instead the outermost aspect of Torah that deals with practical issues alone. In other words, just give me halacha, Rabbi. I don't want to deal with the mystical stuff. I can't handle it. Okay? So what happens is that obviously is an attitude. And therefore what happens? You're saying this is really what needs attention. This doesn't need any attention. And what happens? Then you have your starving soul. If such a person ever concerns himself or herself with the innermost aspect of the Torah, he or she only sets aside a small portion of time to it. Of course, that's not his sheet is. You got to put your body and soul in. not giving it the attention it deserves, but treating it as if it was superfluous material. Ooh, that mystical stuff, Rabbi. Don't give me that. Right? By behaving in this way, he or she lowers and degrades the innermost aspect of the world, the children of Israel, reinforcing the externality of the world over them, who are the nations of the world. Then, what happens? The nations of the world cast Israel down and despise the children of Israel and consider Israel to be a superfluous entity in the world of which there is no need. Okay? In other words, what do we need them for? They're cockroaches. They should be exterminated like cockroaches, God forbid. Okay? Not only this, but these people further cause the outer aspects of the nations, who are the coarse people who damage and destroy the world, to prevail over the inner aspects of the nations of the world, who are the righteous among the nations. They then cause terrible destruction, slaughter, and holocausts, such as our generation has been a witness to. God preserve us from these here and onwards. Okay, so he saw it, and he says this is the reason why it happened. Okay? Therefore, we can see that the redemption of Israel and all the worth of Israel is dependent upon the learning of the Zohar and the innermost aspect of the Torah. The opposite is also true. All the afflictions and degradations that have come upon the children of Israel are on account of their neglecting the most intimate part of the Torah and not having valued it, but having related to it as something superfluous, God forbid. So it's really all about attitude.
The victim, I mean, really, be careful of what you just said. Read that over. You are blaming the victim for all of the tsuris that Jews have received over the years. There's 16 million Jews in the world right now. If 16 million were Torah observant, they'd still come and get us.
Do you absolutely know that?
Absolutely, sure.
You really?
Absolutely.
I don't believe it.
I
No.
don't know that.
No.
Rabbi,
You look at
why do
history.
they hate us?
What's the
Look
point?
at history, you
What's the
can
point
take
you're
it from
making?
Egypt right
Is this
up
a
right
reason not to
now.
study the guns of the Torah?
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, well, it's something
And
to
listen,
study. Of
you
course,
can
it doesn't mean they won't come
you
for
can
us.
disagree with him. Okay? You could disagree with him.
I mean,
Okay?
look at the chutzpah of that rabbi from Poland.
This rabbi who wrote this.
Yeah, look at him.
Listen,
$1.5 million
he saw.
Jews, 6 million.
I agree with you.
Very
And he said, well, they
Listen.
weren't
Not the only
observant
one
enough,
that-
and that's why they died?
He's
Listen,
not the only one that
I told you in the
about it.
beginning, Don, I told you at the beginning, I said there's many opinions, we're not allowed. He felt this is what was going on. He was there. Okay? You can say, okay, that's his opinion. You don't say it's a load of CRA.
Exactly, that's what it is. It does not justify 6 million Jews dying.
Listen,
We're not
let me
gonna
explain
discuss
to you. But listen, can you see can you see an aspect of the formula being true?
No.
You don't see
Did
it.
you read my
You don't see that as a result of the people of Israel that they weren't religious. Not only that, they were not involved in learning any of the mystical wisdom, even though there were Hasidim, there were Baal Shem Tov, there were rabbis. Not enough. It was. Listen, it's very strange to me. There is a story. I'll tell you, it's a strange story, and like I say, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Okay? Morocco had a community of Jews, and they were consistently having Zohar on the shelves, and they would have readings of Zohar all the time. The community. I think when Rommel came, he approached the city, surrounded the city, and said, hand over the Jews. The king said no. Rommel turned and went away. Left. He could have gone in and said, we're going to just plunder.
Where are Moroccan Jews
He left.
today?
Okay, they're all in Israel. Okay, where are they today in terms of their spirituality? Listen, that's a whole other case. The idea really is this. Listen, he holds his reason. I'm like saying, listen, I'd say I'm just telling you what he says. He was there. He saw the kind of attitude had a serious effect on the consciousness of Israel, they didn't value themselves and their
The
souls.
consciousness of the people that were coming to kill them. The Jews could have davened
They're
all
the
day and they
ones,
still
they're
would
on
have
the
came for them.
outside, but they're on the outside.
You understand?
They're on the
Once
outside.
you
Oh.
we don't know all the
Outsiders.
reasons. Okay, we're gonna have to
You
continue
have to
this.
read Mein Kampf.
Rabbi,
It's a good. I hear the points you're making.
I'm familiar with
I have a
that.
different-
Absolutely.
So what did
That's-
she talk
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying this.
why, what, does it matter if you do mitzvahs? Even if you don't have the internal, at least you're doing the mitzvah, that should count for lots.
You do it to the degree that your mind
To
can
live
help
like a
you,
Jew,
can
not just
dictate
go
to
through
you.
the
Yes,
motions.
it has value. It totally has value to do mitzvahs, even if you don't know.
Drop
But
the
How do
attitude.
you?
the idea really is this is saying it's an attitude. It's not, okay, it's an attitude of there are innermost aspects of this Torah. There are deep secrets, and that it is a mitzvah that God demands us to investigate it, okay, and to hold it to be our innermost soul. And if we don't do it, then what are we doing? We're valuing our body over our external aspect, over our most inner aspect. And if you're doing that, he's saying this has a profound effect. That what does this do? This allows for the destructive forces of the Goyim to look at the Jews and saying, you don't have a right to exist.
That's what's happening now.
Yes.
Your brain God.
This is what's happening now. But there's a
Now.
kind of like a surge thing. It's kind of like wavering.
Right
Kind
now
of like,
it's big.
you got like some, you got like
I
these
saw.
views who like, it's the forces are kind of like getting, what do you call it, the polarizing. But, we still have that. Because look at all of the Jews that basically don't value the innermost parts of the Torah. They don't think it's worth anything. They don't think it's worth their attention. I'm talking about religious people. I'm talking about religious
They
people.
just do things from rote.
They do by road, or they just just give me the external aspects, Rabbi, or anything, or they just study that, and they're taught that, and it was indoctrinated, and it was in Europe, it was very predominant, this attitude.
They still do it in near Yisroel in Baltimore.
So the idea really here is, listen, whether you like it or not, the idea here is there is known, Shimon Bar Yochai does say that the study of Zohar brings redemption of the world. He explains it because what is this? It feeds our soul. When we give precedence of our soul, our godlike soul, over our external aspects, that has an effect in the world. Now, you might want to take it, or you might disagree with it, but I would say, until you've done it, then, you don't know. You have to try it. Go try it and then see. Meanwhile, each individual has to understand this attitude. And to the degree that we hold this attitude, so then eventually we'll prevail. Okay? Any other questions?
Are you going to continue this next week?
No. We're doing Safety. It's here next week, but we're going to come back to this.
Yeah, but I won't.
Wait a minute, what are we doing?
I won't